Hi Bahamas. I'm going to speak today on a little bit on the sovereign wealth fund. Just give me a few minutes just setting up a couple of things. I invite you to share the video. We've been having a lot of conversation for a number of years concerning a sovereign wealth fund. In fact, we've had a sovereign wealth fund law pass. Just let me say right off, the sovereign wealth fund law that was passed is equivalent to garbage juice. Okay, now we are in an economic crisis right now, and a lot of times we see the government is simply sitting around borrowing money. And I used an analogy earlier in a previous broadcast where I simply said that we cannot continuously borrow money to pay bills. And that's exactly what we are doing right now. And what I mean by that, we borrow money to pay our bills, but we never borrow money for the economic development or empowerment to allow us to pay back the bills. So imagine that you go to friend number one, you borrow $500 to pay your bills this month. You have no income, you do nothing with the $500 generate income, you end up giving it to the utilities. So what do? Tomorrow, you go and borrow money from another friend. Another $500. You have no income. The money does nothing to generate any income, and so you borrow the money from them. And then the third day, the third month, you go and you borrow from another friend $500 to pay your bills again, and you keep doing that. But so essentially, after about 6 months, you owe about $3,000. But the problem you now have is that you have no means of paying it back because you have no job, no perspective of a job or anything of that sort. And so essentially, this is what our government has been doing for almost 40 years. We've been borrowing to pay bills. And clearly, we could look at our country and look at the economic empowerment that we have enjoyed and see it has been dismal at best. And I hear the talking heads with the measurement of how we will do compared to Haiti or how we do compared to Jamaica or something as of this sort. Let me right off say to you, success is how well you have done based on what you are capable of doing, not how well you have done based on how bad somebody else have done. Success is how well you have done based on what you are capable of achieving, not compared to how bad somebody else is doing. And we're very good at that. Look at Haiti, look at Jamaica, look at everything else. When their circumstances are totally different than ours, we must measure our success as to how we were capable of achieving. We have, conservatively speaking, I know people say we have a $8 billion debt and all these things. I would unequivocally put to you that our national debt is at 100% of the $16 billion economy that we have, formal and informal economy. And so we have to be realistic. When we look at the guarantees and the monies we owe to this one and that one and that one, and the infrastructure we need to even fix things, we have not been told the truth. It says you cannot manage what you cannot measure, and it's impossible to measure what you refuse to acknowledge. So we must first acknowledge the truth. And one of the things I want us as a people to do is begin to demand that KP the Turnquest and those individuals in finance lay out who we owe, why we owe, and what we spent it for the last 50 years. Clearly, we must have record of who it is that we owe and why we owe it. So all we have to do is year by year say this is the amount of money we took in, this is the amount of money we borrowed, and this is what we spend it on. So that Bahamians can know where their money went and what is the liability they owe and the reason why they owe it and to whom they owe it. This is not complicated science. How is it that you can have them every year get up and tell you what your national debt is, but they don't know who you owe it to? They don't know why you owe it. They don't know what you borrowed it for. Something is wrong with that. We could also very easily, in details, don't give me the summary with this, and this. Just break it down. Just break it down, and we spend $6 million for this school and $2 million for this roof and this for this road and whatever else. So we could begin to examine value for money. We are at a point in our nation and our national development, that we have to make decisions based on information, on data. No more, I feel, I think, I was told, well, I hope, I pray, I believe they're going to do whatever. We need as citizens, as collectively, to become involved in our governance. Governance without consent of the governed is the definition of slavery. Governance without consent of the governed is the definition of slavery. We cannot consider ourselves slaves. We elect people to govern on our behalf, not to govern us like kings and queens. And so we have to begin to now, in this post-COVID, post-Dorian environment, begin to become involved in your life. Because that's what governance is. Politics is about your life, not political parties, about your life. I want you to look and ask yourself how secure you are in a nation that's about to crumble and an economy that shows no means of repair because leadership have not given you a blueprint or even an idea as to what's now, not less, what's next. And so, but one of the beautiful things is we often spend so much time speaking about natural resources. And we have been blessed. I think we are considered one of the most blessed nations in the world because we have an abundance of natural resources. If you were to actually take an opportunity to be educated on what you have and abandon the stories that they give you concerning that your natural resources have no value, and the political talking heads who say, well, why don't you do it, why you don't do it? This is why we're going to talk about the Sovereign Wealth Fund today. And it's very easy for you to understand, Let's move to the point, for example, they say Aragonite have no resources. I want you to imagine that you have Aragonite in this country, and Aragonite is just one of the subcategories of aggregates. But I want you to imagine that you have companies in this Bahamas that are spending tens of millions of dollars per year to take things of no value out of the country. They're bringing tens of millions of dollars in machinery, $500 million to $1 billion worth of ships to carry nothing. And they tell you this, and you would actually have some idiots, I have to call them idiots, who would say, it ain't worth nothing, and they tell you this and they tell you whatever. And let's ask you, why would you set up a multi-million-dollar company to carry nothing, something of no value, out of the country? And so for you talking heads, and I call you idiot savants, because you're not just regular idiots, you are idiots of a special kind, to begin to make an argument and you have no way of substantiating even the fact that you say it has no value. And it's very easy. If it has no value, for those of you that say it has no value, why don't we hear you demanding that those companies stop losing money by exporting it? Just tell them, leave it where it is. It is of no value. Why are you running on? I want to see you marching on Parliament demanding, please, Mr. Prime Minister, stop those people from exporting dirt out of the country that has no value. But you notice that you're the ones who are screaming it has no value, but the ones who are mining it are not. The ones who are benefiting from it is not. But we're not going to talk about Aragonite, because I'm going to come back to Aragonite, because like I told you, that's one of the resources that comes under the word aggregates. Because we have Aragonite, we have calcite, we have sand, we have dolomite, we have granite, we have a whole list of things that come under aggregates that is listed as part of our natural resources. We have our air, believe it or not, our airspace. We have our shipping lanes. We have our 200-mile economic zone. Do you know that we have some underwater caves in Grand Bahama and Abaco that National Geographic says they cannot put a value on it? You should just Google underwater caves Bahamas. It's made of aragonite and stellarites or whatever it is. It's beyond the billions and trillions of dollars. Because not only does it have the value, so this is not my thing. This is the National Geographic that put value on historical aspect. We have blue holes. We have the pine trees. There's a coppice. It's called coppice. We have the third largest supply of mangroves in the world. We have the third largest barrier reef where fish and fishes are born, etc. We have a water supply that is yet to be measured in its full capacity. And so we just have to come to understand that we have been blessed, but we have not been good steward in the selection of our leadership, in deciding what is the direction that we want to go as a country. And you have to ask yourself, how is it that we have billions, if not trillions of dollars worth of resources, yet in a country so rich, we have such a high level of poverty? Literally speaking, we had 75,000 individuals in this country that lives below the poverty line. And we have tens of thousands that are working poor. And what do I mean by that? Let me just define the poverty line in the Bahamas. In the Bahamas, it is 4,247, and that's almost 10 years ago. So when you take into inflation and the price of goods that's coming up, what you now have is a poverty line of $6,000 per person. Now, this is how it works. If you have 2 people in your family, that means you should carry home $12,000 a year. If you have 2 people in your family and you're not taking home I ain't say earning $12,000 a year, then guess what? You're below the poverty line. That's $250 a week. I says, if you're not taking home $250 a week, you are below the poverty line for 2 people in the house. If you have 3 people in the house, you should be taking home $375 per week. Taking home. I didn't say earning. This is what you should take home. Will put you exactly $375 a week. Will put you $1 over the poverty line. You have 4 people in your household, then you should be taking home $500 a week, or you're below the poverty line. You know, many mothers in this town don't take home $500 a week, and they have 2 and 3 kids. So essentially, what you have is the working poor. You could go to the civil service and probably find 1/3 of them meeting the working poor definition. So how is it that we brag about having the 3rd largest GDP in this hemisphere? $35,000 per person. Remember now, here it is, I'm telling you, just to reach poverty for 4 people, you must take home $26,000 a year for 4 people. But according to the GDP, every man, woman, and child, even the one born yesterday, makes $35,000 a year. That's what the GDP says. So if you have 4 people in your house, according to the GDP, there's $140,000 worth of income in there. But we know that ain't real. Now, if you extrapolate from that and only use the workforce of $225,000 to $250,000, that would mean the average person in your house, the average person that actually works, should be making about $60,000 a year in the Bahamas, the workforce alone, the GDP based on the workforce. We know the average person, I didn't say family, I said the person should be making $60,000 a year. That is made every year in this country, except Bahamians are not seeing it. The Bahamas has become paradise for foreigners and hell for Bahamians. Or a better way of saying it is, the Bahamas is heaven for foreigners and hell for Bahamians. It is time for us to take our country back. It is time for Bahamians to take ownership of this country. And one of the first steps in that is going to be the Sovereign Wealth Fund that I'm going to get to you in a moment. I just want to put in context for you to understand the hell they've dressed up for you, and you've become comfortable in it, that you will begin to fight to be oppressed. You need to ask yourself, if you're supposed to be making $60,000 a year and you're making 15, who has your 45,000? Because the statistic does not lie. These are not my statistics. And I'm talking about the GDP based on the population of the workforce. Wealth is being made in the Bahamas. I just want you to understand that. The question is, why aren't you feeling it? It comes down to leadership. Leadership, leadership, leadership. Leadership is everything in the Bahamas. The question is, what do we do about it now? We have made the mistakes of the past. Now that we have come to recognize the mistakes we have made, what will we do to correct the mistakes going forward? It relies on leadership. And so we often hear this talk about the sovereign wealth fund. I want to talk about one thing. The Bahamas is about we have about three, when we started off in the Bahamas, independence, we had about 3 million acres of crown land. Yes. And so we have to basically, when you look at the value of this crown land, I want you to pay attention to this. There is no more beachfront property in America. Waterfront property, none. You pay millions of dollars for a fraction of an acre. We have thousands of acres of beachfront property here in the Bahamas for millions of dollars each. We see islands, very small islands, selling in the Bahamas, 25 million, 60 million, 40 million dollars. So we know the value of beachfront or waterfront properties in the Bahamas. You know, it's amazing that we don't even realize that in the Bahamas, more so in Grand Bahama, you still could buy waterfront properties for $40,000 on the outer islands, $40,000, $50,000. In America, they're paying millions and tens of millions for the same waterfront property. But we don't understand and recognize where we live and why you were born with this privilege. It's time for you to take advantage of it. Just from the, and this is not for the Sovereign Wealth Fund, just from the carbon credits that's produced by the mangroves and the aragonite and everything, without doing anything, $12 billion a year is generated in the Bahamas that we do nothing about. We let it expire every December because we don't claim it. You have a period of time to claim the carbon credits you generate. We don't claim it. Some people know it's there and they allow it to expire because claiming it will cause more of you to become empowered and you will outnumber them. See, they cannot afford for 390,000 of you to become equal to their 5,000 friends, family, lovers, and whatever else. So what they rather do, they rather let it just dissipate into the air. Simple thing of going to the House of Assembly and passing a law allowing you to sell carbon credits would allow you to get 4 times your national budget. No, but they will tax you, value-added tax, and they'll begin to argue, we only tax you 7.5%, they tax you 12%, and there's only a split difference of about 4.5 to 5%. But then you would actually sit and argue on behalf of these political parties as to who oppress you the least, instead of arguing not to be oppressed. How could you be a citizen in the richest country on earth but have less than some of the poorest country in the hemisphere? How? Leadership and decisions. Your decisions. Decisions you have made. Decisions your parents have made. Decisions your grandparents have made. I want to talk more so to you who have children that, you know, we had this word bounce around, millennials and Gen Z, which is generation Y and Z. I'm part of that generation X. I guess there's what's a W before that? The boomers, and the way we use it is we have the boomers, which is the war generation, the boomers 2, which is my generation, and there's the millennials, the Gen Z, and the alpha generations. The millennials are from 1980 to 1995, or 81 to 1995. Gen Z is from 1996 to 2010, and alpha generation is from 2011 to present. And so the question is, what have my generation done? My generation, which is the boomers 2 or generation X, we have sat silently and allow the boomers, the pre-technology generation in a world enriched in technology, to govern us. We have allowed a 21st century country to be governed by 20th century leaders who are married to 19th century concepts. In 19th century concepts being implemented by 20th century leadership in a 21st century world. That has to end. COVID-19 shows you it can no longer be leadership as usual. We have to rethink normal. We've been doing normal. We now must go to extraordinary. We've been doing ordinary. We must now go to extraordinary. We must abandon normal and accept the new reality that we're in. Now, let me get to the sovereign wealth fund aspect of this. I hear so many people running around about you're going to start a sovereign wealth fund and you're going to all get $100,000 a year and you're going to get all of these different things. That's all garbage. That's not how sovereign wealth fund works. You know, yes, on occasion, as the sovereign wealth fund develop itself, that can happen. But the purpose of a sovereign wealth fund in its original concept, a better quality of life for the nation, is to take the assets to be shared for the common good to develop a better Bahamas. I'm going to come back and explain to you how we could fund this initially in the billions of dollars. But let's understand what it is. So let's eliminate the concept, because if I give you $50,000 a year, it means nothing if your light bill is $1,000 a month, $12,000 gone. It means nothing if you have to pay an extraordinary amount for rent and all these things that adds no value to your life. That you have a broken down school system, an antiquated public service bus, all these things. What is the purpose of $50,000 in a country that 10 years ago estimated you needed $56,000 per person to live? So I'm still selling you short. The purpose of a sovereign wealth fund is to take the money generated for the common good and to build better infrastructures and a better quality of life for U.S. behemoths. What do I mean by that? It means taking $2 billion and building a proper infrastructure for BPL, a smart grid, microgrids, energy efficiency of homes, reducing the cost of electricity to maybe $50 a month, because you have solar energy, wind energy, you have solar powered AC, your attics and things are reducing. It reduces the cost of living. That's the first thing it does. What would happen if I fix it so you could run your AC every single day, 24 hours a day, and your light bill is $150 a month? Never have to turn off your AC because of efficiency, because of instead of giving you something every month, I've built a proper infrastructure for energy delivery that causes your electricity bill to go down personally. It causes the food store and the clothing store and all the businesses in the country to remove the energy costs from the cost of goods. That is what a sovereign wealth fund does. And so now you begin to see the cost of a better cost of life living by living in the Bahamas, because now the price of goods and services and everything else, because everything you pay for energy is incorporated into what you buy. And so that's what you do with a sovereign wealth fund. Before you start talking about distributing money, you build a quality of life. You take $1 billion or $2 and build a proper health care, or what you call healthy living regime for all behemoths, so that you can get free dental care, free eye care, free health care, free whatever it is in the health field environment. Even go to the gym for free. Why? Giving you a better life. That is what a sovereign wealth fund is supposed to do. So that whatever it is you need, your children need from birth to death, even free funerals, from birth to death. That is what a sovereign wealth fund is supposed to do. Improve the quality of life. So we need to just eliminate this whole concept of saying, oh, we're gonna just have some money and I have some people even tell you that, you know, behemoths want to go shopping, which is absolutely not true. Sorry, I'm just a little distracted here. For me for a minute. So it is absolutely true. I just want to see some comments you guys are saying. Okay, so let's go to education. A sovereign wealth fund would create an education environment from birth to death, free education. We're talking about advanced degrees. We're talking about creating an environment of research. We're talking about how do we improve longevity in life, how we protect the environment, how we educate our children to be competitive in the new global environment. We fund education, not the BS that we have right now, calling it education. That is what a sovereign wealth fund do. So it puts you in a better position. It prepares your children for problems that are yet to exist so they can solve it on the instant. It's building a whole new educational system that is free for you as citizens and the rest of the world will pay for. That is what a sovereign wealth fund does. A sovereign wealth fund does is create a border control system, not patrol, where you walk around and look. Control your space, your economic zone, the 200-mile economic zone that's weighted in the trillions of dollars in the blue economy. I want you to notice what I said. The blue economy in the Bahamas is worth trillions of dollars, not billions, trillions. We're going to talk about the blue economy soon. Not today, because I want to talk about the simple thing of establishing a sovereign wealth fund. So what do you do? A sovereign wealth fund establishes a border control to protect the resources, to guard against those around us who will destroy and abuse the garden that's been given to us. Border control uses technology. Do you know they have floating drones that you could just remotely let anybody know that comes within your border? Do you know we have flying drones? We have, I'm not talking about these little drones that they bought. I'm talking about real drones that flies around the country. I'm talking about drones that's in the water right now. They have technology now where drones could be on patrol for 1 month, water drones that without even coming in. They have boats that what they call it, nobody else on the boat. It's actually, I'm talking about, they have small drones in the water, perimeter drones, and they have full boats, just like the Defense Force boats, that nobody's on it, that patrols your entire area. That's what a sovereign wealth fund does. And alerts you to rapid response that sends people to respond to any type of intrusion, anything there is. That's the new reality we live in. That's what a sovereign wealth fund does. It creates an environment where hundreds of millions of dollars a year are taken out of this country in resources that behemoths don't know. It's bringing accountability to the resources you have for the benefits of behemoth. That's what a sovereign wealth fund does. A sovereign wealth fund creates a quality of life. It creates what is called affordable housing. So not where you're paying 9, 10, 15% of whatever it is that you for living. We're talking about giving preferential access to behemoths that you can enjoy your home, not no little boxes that we call affordable housing and all these things government use. You know, where they don't even give you a quarter acre. Where it is that you have the land mass totally undeveloped, and they have you all clustered in our country, in a country with so much, clustered with a mortgage, with high interest rate, and bad quality of work, because some family or friend or lover or somebody who built a house and gave you garbage and call it. We're talking about building quality homes, homes that others around the world would envy at little or no cost to the typical behemoth. We're going to talk about the real estate aspect of that. That's another video coming where we're going to talk about how we could build 25, 50, 60,000 homes that doesn't cost the typical behemoth nothing to live in it. That's the country we're talking about. This is not fantasy, no make-believe, but it requires leadership with ability, with vision to see into the future. I live in the future. I speak back to the past. That's why, for me, most of the ideas I'm telling you is with clarity. I've spent the 20 years I've been home getting to know my country, understanding the qualities and the challenges. I understand the pastel, the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental challenges of our country. I understand the SWOTs, the strengths, the weakness, the opportunities, and the threats. I understand the missing SOPs, the standard operating procedures that should happen. I understand the impact analysis that we should be doing. That's why I don't need, remember I tell you about in Parliament, I don't need no script. I don't need no paper, no anything else. This has become a part of me. When I talk about what I'm talking about, all I have to do is look around and see the Bahamas and describe it to those who ask. A sovereign wealth fund is not about giving you money. It is about encouraging strength and growth. It's embracing the limits of our minds. It's embracing technology. It's embracing a national development vision, a strategy that where no behemoths left behind. Not no child left behind. No behemoths left behind. A place where the diaspora will fight to return to. We're in this new reality where we have thousands and tens of thousands of behemoths, and those who are inheritors by virtue of their parents and grandparents will want to come home to. We talk about Singapore and all these places. Do you know the place of Singapore and Hong Kong that we admire? Singapore, for an example, is less than 30 square miles larger than Freeport. I didn't say the Bahamas. I said Singapore, with 6 million people, is 30 square miles larger than Freeport. Not Grand Bahama. The little city of Freeport is only 30 square miles smaller than Singapore, that has 6 million people. So we have room for every Bahamian and inheritor in the world to come back home to this new Bahamas that we should be building. That is what a sovereign wealth fund it's about. And so I see where you talk about the university, not Bahamas. I'm not even talking about no garbage campuses. I'm talking about world-class university. I'm not talking about no buildings and running back up. I'm talking about endowment funds. I'm talking about the University of Bahamas literally have $1 billion, $2, $3, $4 billion to build institutions, centers of learning, where the great minds in the world will come to study agriculture, to study science of nature, of our environment, to study in the 3rd largest barrier reefs, not buildings, not names on buildings where we call universities, because colleges transfer information. The word university is where you create knowledge, create information. We're not doing that yet. We're talking about not name of University of Bahamas. We're talking about the action of University of Bahamas, where it's endowed, where it has the funding. People are fighting to come and study in the University of Bahamas, to study in our waters, to study. Do you know that there's an opening above us that leads straight into space? It's the only place on Earth that you could look straight down, unobstructed from space, and see the Bahamas. To understand why does that exist, to understand why for billions of years, I hear this thing about aragonite, why for billions of years aragonite just appears in the Bahamas at medical grade, at 93% is medical grade or 92%. Why aragonite in the Bahamas appears at 97%, just pops up in the Bahamas without trying. They tell you we don't have aragonite. Imagine if the Bahamas has been here for billions of years. So where's the billions of years of aragonite? This shouldn't just start. But we live on top of the hill. The aragonite falls down on top of the hill and it slowly drains down the side of the hill. When technology advances, so does the access to the aragonite. But we have more than enough aragonite today to balance our national debt and make every Bahamian a millionaire, just on the aragonite alone. But we're not going to come to the aragonite. I'm saying how we can do this right now, because I don't want to get into the argument about mining and marketing and everything else. I'm talking about Crown Land. Right now, today, in the office of the Prime Minister is billions of dollars of Crown Land. Today, on September 9th or whatever day, and they could call a special session of Parliament, junk that sovereign wealth fund and I could break it down, and all of you PLPs and my friends, we know that sovereign wealth fund that was signed was garbage juice. And I'm not a legal person, and I could break it down to show you where it is of absolutely no value. It's time for us to stop giving our people smokes and mirror. The Bible says, which one of your child would ask for bread and you give him a rock, a stone? Would come to you hungry and you give him a serpent? Which one of you would do that? So why are we allowing our political parties to play us? The problem we have is that we keep allowing our behavior to cause our own oppression. Sitting in the office of the Prime Minister today is billions of dollars of crown land. And this is why everybody fights to be Prime Minister, you know. And for those of you who want to be Prime Minister, Ms. Kamalafi, Mr. Brave Davis, I expect you, beginning today, to begin to demand that all the crown land in the Bahamas, known and unknown, be surrendered to a sovereign wealth fund at the next sitting at the House of Assembly. Are you, Mr. Prime Minister, are you, Mr. Brave Davis, Ms. Kamalafi, and Mr. Kevin King, and Mr. Cassius Stewart, and all of you guys who claiming you want to be Prime Minister? Prove you believe in vehemence. As of today, let's demand that all crown land, known and unknown, be surrendered to a sovereign wealth fund immediately. We could pass the law and we could have a discussion of it being properly. Just pass the law surrendering all sovereign wealth fund. Let me tell you one of the power of sovereign wealth funds. That sovereign wealth fund where they have politicians, family, friends, lovers, foreigners, and fanatical supporters will be appointed to run. That's not how sovereign wealth fund is run. There's something called a sovereign asset management company. You take the sovereign asset management company who looks to add value. The best example of this is very simple. Yes, here's the best example. If I was to win $1 million today, I don't go and give, let's use Kalina, Guardian. I don't go and give Kalina my $1 million or BAF, and here's my $1 million, and give me back 15%. That's what they're doing with the oil. Give me back 15% of my $1 million? What type of madness is it? I hear people all the time on the radio, oh, we should be getting 50% of what I own. What the hell? Why, who told you? Because somebody told them that stupidness, and they repeat it. Conditioning. If you win $1 million, you go to Kalina, you go to, what's the thing that, thing that Sebastian just started, I can't remember the name, and you give them your $1 million, and they give you back whatever they make above the million. They keep a percentage of it for management, and they give you a return on your $1 million. Your $1 million stays right there. You don't give up your asset and get a percentage of it back. This is madness that we hear people repeating. Stop letting them condition you. A sovereign asset management company is just like Kalina. It's just like the financial services that Sabas started. It's just like other investment arms. You give them the money, they use it, make money on it, and then they keep a percentage of the value they add. Sovereign asset funds around the world does that. There is no more land being made in the Bahamas. So it's very easy. Let's use Andres for an example. 500,000 acres. A madness. What type, it just tells you what our foreign investors think of us, That they would come into your country and tell you that they want 500,000, 1/3 of the largest island in the Caribbean, and 260 square miles of aragonite that's worth billions of dollars in exchange for 200 jobs. Tells you what foreigners think of you. It tells you of Bahamians that is working along with those foreigners think of you. Do you know, about 30 years ago, the United Nations is part of this concept called the Eden Project, where before the technology we knew today, they were looking around the world as in case there's a catastrophic calamity on Earth, where would you turn to feed the world? Where would you turn to provide water, food, and subsistence? Do you know the Bahamas? Andros was listed as one of those places for water, for the barrier reefs, for the land mass we're feeding. Do you know that the 500,000 acres that they're talking about now, back 30 years ago, Andros had a value of $150 billion. Andros had a value before what the things can be used for today, such as the aragonite, such as the mud and everything else, had a value of $150 billion as part of the Eden Project. Just one island in the Bahamas. And that's just, they were just averaging it at $100,000 an acre. We know you can have significant value. And that's the current value. That wasn't even what it could produce. But that means that the person using a value from almost 30 years ago asked you for $50 million worth of land and 260 acres with billions of tons of aragonite in exchange for 200 jobs. And you had people still today arguing on behalf of political parties as to what could happen. What type of madness, what type of insanity has beset our people? Are we being so conditioned to slavery that we are willing to prostitute the future for the comfort for 200 people to work? You would give away $50 billion for 200 jobs? JOBS? Just over broke suckers in the just over broke system? Today, Andros could very easily be worth $500 billion, just as is. Imagine that you have the third largest barrier reef that the world depends on for fish and all these natural things that grow. A sovereign wealth fund would look to grow and expand the ecosystem, the green economy, to protect the reefs, to study why reefs are dying and why we could plant and how we could redevelop our Bahamas. So that when we do go to mining aragonite, we could stop it right now. You know, the people say aragonite mean nothing. Put a moratorium on aragonite right now. No more export of aragonite out of the country. You say they ain't worth anything. Stop all export of aragonite till we have a real conversation. If we need aragonite or fill or aggregate, whatever, it's right here for the Bahamas. We need sand to build and construction, it's right here in the Bahamas. It has no value. Let's stop the export. Just stop it. We're not earning anything. Look in the treasury. Look in the report, $24 a year. So why are we exporting it? Stop it. This is where the lies comes to reality, when you stop for a minute and think. But I'm just talking about the crown land. If you were to take the 2 million acres or whatever amount is left of crown land, the thousands of miles of beachfront properties that's still left in the Bahamas, it could be worth in the billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars. Well, let's put it in a sovereign wealth fund. Let's do like what they say in Singapore, where 85% of the land or 90% of the land is preserved in a sovereign wealth fund, not to be sold, to be co-managed, co-used, co-produced, co-whatever. Let's surrender in the next sitting of the House. Pass we have from now till whenever. We pay millions of dollars for the Attorney General office. They should be able to look around and come up with a sovereign wealth fund. If not, I know a competent lawyer. He and I have been talking about this for 10 years. Mr. Gregory Moss. I'm sure he'll be more than happy, if properly compensated, to write you a sovereign wealth fund bill that could be tested amongst all the other laws and minds in the country. Let's do that. Let's have a proper sovereign wealth fund that surrenders the ownership of all assets. We're going to start on day one with just the crown land, known and unknown. So here it is that you have a crown land with a value. Let's put a value of $50 billion on crown land. The first thing we're going to do, let's retire the national debt. Like that. See, people, if you just put, we're selling quarter acres of beachfront, whatever, for $1 million. I'm just going to just put a small amount for $50 billion just on the land, undeveloped value. And when you hear me talk about the homes and the idea that Sir Lyndon Pendleton had concerning he mentioned Aragonite. He created something called the Hotel Corporation, which is now digitized. We need to bring it back. I'm going to talk about that. I have so much in on me, but we're going to talk about the Hotel Corporation, on how the Hotel Corporation alone could retire the national debt. We're going to talk about how to digitize the people-to-people program and redefine the tourism product in this new post-COVID environment. But right now, I'm simply saying we could leverage part of the Crown Land assets that we have and raise the $50 billion. Now understand, people will invest for value. As Bahamians, we don't have to really invest anything. We own it. They're going to put the development value on it because they anticipate that we're going to build this new metropolis, this new garden, the new Garden of Eden of economic development, utilizing these economic models. We have the green economy, the orange economy, the blue economy, the digital economy, the knowledge economy, with SWF, okay, and the conceptual economy. So we're going to build this whole thing. And you're going to understand when I go to the housing regime, how every Bahamian family could retire a millionaire in 6 years with land reform. And that's coming. But I just want to talk about simply starting the Sovereign Wealth Fund with a multi-billion-dollar base of surrendering all the Crown land. Now, let me tell you why they're very afraid of this idea. Because a proper accounting of Crown land, which Hugh Alexander Ingram did a complete audit in 2009, and guess who was sitting in there in 2009? Our current Prime Minister, right in cabinet. He was sitting right in cabinet. And so the problem is, it requires a land registry. It requires a repeal of the Quieting Titles Act. It requires a land registry. Let me repeat that again. What a land registry will do will show you who owned every piece of land in this country. And you may find hundreds of thousands of Crown land, maybe in the millions, are no longer in the office of the Prime Minister, but in political people hands. Yes. Those who you thought were serving you. Call them out on it. The land registry is about theft so they could park for their future family, generations into the future. A land registry will show you the tens of thousands of acres that these individuals give themselves when they were sitting in office supposed to be serving you. The hundreds of thousands of acres in Andres and these outer islands or whatever else. That is why they don't want land registry. Because other than that, technology could do it. I mean, technology, you see, as it stands today, how is it that we have, right now today, we have Google Earth could give you maps. I can show you a map of Grand Bahama, of every lot on Grand Bahama, right now. So how hard it is to create a database, right? And then put within that database, going all the way back to when Columbus came, the who owns the land up to today and how they acquired it. What are they afraid of? Are they afraid of you finding out that a person that served one term now has 10,000 acres of Crown land? Are they afraid in Grand Bahama you'll find out who owned the land that you thought BAIC owns, where the billions of dollars of oil spill occurred? You understand the grand deception? Not only of Grand Bahama, but entire Bahamas. Bahamians, if you're sincere about your country today, I ask you to join me in calling for a real sovereign wealth fund to be developed and immediately surrendering all land, Crown and otherwise, be deposited into it. That means no more foreigners. Are you telling me, Mr. Prime Minister, the 5-year celebrity, that you have the intellectual capital greater than some of the greatest in real estate investment trust funds in the world to make a decision on who to give land to for free so they could build a hotel for us to get jobs in? That you singularly? Because exclusively Crown land lies in the hand of the Prime Minister. One sidebar. I tired of you people talking garbage about the Prime Minister have ultimate powers. I ask you guys who say that BS, to go read the Constitution. No prime minister governs this country in exclusivity. The prime minister has as much power as the emasculated men and women in his cabinet. That's what I say. He has no more power than that. He has no more power than the House of Assembly. The prime minister can do nothing in cabinet without consent of 51%. Not even 51%, 50% plus one. So if you have some men in there with testicular fortitude and ovarian audacity from the women, the prime minister has no power to do anything because he should fear them. You could disappoint me. You could appoint me and you could disappoint me. But you will meet me where we're equals in the House of Assembly. You don't have no more vote than I do there as a member of parliament. So this garbage about the prime minister, we have to change the Constitution because the prime minister has ultimate power. No, you need leadership. You need leadership that's going to represent you, not capitulate to some guy with a title. When he was running, he was not prime minister. He had no power. He had no special powers. How this title we give him makes him all God, all power? But tell me when the prime minister has the ability singularly to vote to pass anything in the House of Assembly. Garbage. Stop letting them tell you stuff. They mislead you. We've been misled for too long. Because in his cabinet of 16 or 18 people, because you don't have 8 of them with testicular fortitude or ovarian audacity to stand up to the prime minister, you're going to tell me he has ultimate power? He has no power except through consent of cabinet. Throughout consent. And cabinet has no power without consent of parliament. And parliament has no power without consent of the people. They keep lying to you and you keep believing it. It's like what Hitler say. Repeat a lie enough times and they'll begin to believe it. I ask you to call the quite cutes. What you call them? QCs. Ask them. If they tell you that the prime minister has ultimate power, they're all liars. He has the power to appoint and disappoint. When he has nobody to appoint, he has no power. And so until men and women stop capitulating, kissing his hand because they feel they have no ability, and maybe they don't. The problem then is you sent men and women in there without ability who must kiss because they need $50,000 a year of salary from the job because they don't have ability to earn it outside of there. Imagine that. You send men and women who will sell a country for $60,000 a year salary and a title. They will sell a country for less than a quarter acre of land. They'll sell you for. The $60,000 a year salary will buy them a quarter, not even a quarter acre. Do you know $60,000 a year salary for cabinet minister plus the 28.8 won't even buy a quarter acre of land on New Providence, but they will sell you out for that? Imagine that. That's the type of leadership you send to parliament. We sent to parliament because they want a job. They want to be appointed to some position. Ambition greater than ability. That's why we are where we are today. The problem is us as a collective. Regardless of what I say, it is us as a collective that determine the type of leadership we get. Choose better leadership. Do you know the Constitution is not to constrain you? It's meant to for the constraint of government. It's meant to protect, to prohibit, and permit. Not to be abused the way you allow it to be done right now. But it requires us to abandon the identity politics and take on the position of ownership of this country. Not just for you, for yourself, your children and grandchildren. We say we abide by Christian principles and the rule of law. A wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, what are you leaving for yours? Tell me, what are you leaving for your grandchildren? Debt, national debt, in a country with so much. National debt. That's what you're leaving your children, in a country of so much. We can do better, Bahamians, but it requires us to become selfish in the choices that we make. Please, let's stop attacking each other. Let's begin to listen with an intent of understanding. Let's demand more from our leadership. Let's demand that a properly constructed sovereign wealth fund be passed, where beginning immediately on that same day, all crown land, known and unland, the authority is transferred to the sovereign wealth fund, where a competent sovereign asset management, not contaminated by the family, friends, lovers, financiers, foreigners, or fanatical supporters regime, cannot be influenced. I want you to know another part of a sovereign wealth fund. The money doesn't go into the national treasury. It goes for economic development of the country. We could designate whatever we want to be contributed to the what do you call it, the consolidated fund or whatever, for growth. But if you empower your people to where wealth is generated within your country from outside of your country, man, a tax rate of just 10%, flat rate tax, will probably generate billions of dollars, way past what you required. And Bahamians won't have a problem in paying 10%, you know, if they're getting value for money. They won't. Imagine now where you say we have a budget now of running a country of $5 billion. Remember now, when we take the money from this initial funding of the sovereign wealth fund, University of the Bahamas will become self-funding because they'll have the proper tools to generate. And the intellectual capital from the University of the Bahamas will be worth billions of dollars per year, just like other universities. They don't look to government for handouts. They will generate their own wealth from the intellectual capital. The power company will be properly functioning, generating their own money, because we're going to wipe out their debt just like that and give them the tools of a smart grid. So where we could begin to use electrical vehicles, because we're going to have a green nation. We're not going to be using we're going to be using electrical cars where you charge them for free. Okay, we're going to have we're going to use money from the sovereign wealth fund. Sorry, bus drivers, we're going to retrain you to go make some real money, because ground transportation in the Bahamas is going to be free on new electrical buses. Free ground transportation to move around our country on cue. You could set your watch by the bus. You know, if your watch is off, just look outside and say, okay, we know the bus pass every 15 minutes on 15:30 on the hour, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and 45 minutes. So as soon as you see the bus pass, boom, oh, I can set my watch. That's how efficient we're going to have. Ground transportation will be efficient, because with a proper ground transportation, productivity goes up in a country. You know, the hours and the millions and billions of dollars we waste in traffic and everything, that's going to be a thing of the past. Sorry, taxi drivers. You're going to be able to catch a tram from wherever. You know, this whole thing of you waiting for taxi drivers. See, we're going to rebuild a new economy, but we're not going to leave you out. We're going to make a better life for you. It's going to be left behind in this new Bahamas. We're going to build a green, sustainable country. So when the tourists come, they catch a taxi. Maybe we'll convert you to driving those buses, you know, that you have. If we don't have them set up at some electric beacon, you know, you have driving cars. So maybe we can have you drive until we advance the technology, you know, as we transition, because nothing is instant. So as we transition as we do the build out, we'll employ you. We'll just make sure that you're properly compensated, so that you don't think that we're taking some license plate from you, because the whole tourism model is going to change. And so we're talking about a sovereign wealth fund is to improve the quality of life with the billions of dollars it generates. You ask, so what are you going to do with the land? Well, if we actually begin to buy back, every time something goes for sale, or we could compulsory reacquire land. And think about this. You have a $50 billion or whatever amount you have, and something is for sale. You can compulsory reacquire the land, because when you pay them for the land, there's no value, diminishes from the sovereign wealth fund. Because if I go and I buy $1 million worth of land and it's worth $1 million, I give them $1 million of cash out of the sovereign wealth fund, but I have $1 million worth of land with economic value way beyond $1 million. So this is what the sovereign wealth fund will start with. And we can have multiple sovereign. We won't have to even commingle the sovereign wealth fund. We'll have a sovereign wealth fund to hold the crown land. We'll have a sovereign wealth fund to hold the seabeds. We'll have a sovereign wealth fund to hold the shipping lanes. We'll have a sovereign wealth fund to hold the airspace. We'll have a sovereign wealth fund to hold the oil. We'll have a sovereign wealth fund to hold the mangroves. We'll have as many sovereign wealth funds as we want. We have countries with multiple sovereign wealth funds, and they all will have its own value and purpose and protective, and we'll meet and decide how they intermingle and whatever. But each one will act in its own accord. A self-sustaining country. We can do this, beginning with negating our national debt and rebuilding anew. We're just simply creating millions of people around the world wants to visit us. They say we have 7 million tourists. We're going to take ownership of those cruise ships. If not, they'll go around. Coco Key, if you don't like it, we'll buy you out. Then it'll become a playground where we as Bahamians, we go to enjoy it. Not no foreigners. Where Bahamians enjoy it first. You don't like it? Go around the Bahamas. Complain, we'll tax you to come through the Bahamas. It requires revolution thinking. The world is changing. It's time for us to redefine the Bahamas. But again, it starts right now. Join me in demanding that the Prime Minister come clean. Don't even have to count anything. The Sovereign Wealth Fund will count it. We'll hire the GIS people since you done lost track of where it is. I don't know how you give away crown land and don't know where it is. The GIS, these Bahamians, for you who have been suckered into saying you're going to get a little piece of land, an Andres or Abaco or somewhere, they're going to build a little house for you, a little cubicle. No, we're going to build houses that you could live and enjoy, and that you could live in and you could enjoy. And it becomes part of the economic picture where you could have affordable homes, affordable housing coming in, not no crammed up and no plantation they create for you. Okay, we can have a minimum requirement. For me personally, I believe that I think it should be illegal for you to live anywhere in the Bahamas for less than a quarter acre, unless you're living vertically. And we can have some variations in those zones, but we can have a conversation. This is not just my idea; this is our idea. We can have a discussion on it. But we have the resources in the billions of dollars today called Crown Land. And we could leverage it to pay off the national debt and design a new Bahamas. Reduce your energy. Build a new educational plantation. Tear down all those old schools. Build 21st century schools like this. We go into neighborhoods, and where we need the school, because it's important, because education is going to prepare us for the future. But let me tell you why it's important that a sovereign wealth fund be established. And I know many of you who believe in education. I believe in education too, but I want you to know something. Educated people seek empowerment through jobs and everything else. But do you know there's a formula, right? If you ask me if I had a choice today to be educated or empowered, I'll take empowerment. Do you know why? An empowered person will demand better education. So you should seek empowerment. Empowerment, but you know how people say they go to work right now and they want what? Better schools for their children, right? Better schools for their grandchildren. So let's become empowered on the instant. Not where they personally give you funding. I'm talking where your light bill goes down to whatever. I'm talking to where your education system is there. No matter what it is you want to study, you could have a degree and decide to go for another degree. Whatever you want. Whatever skill set you want as a Bahamian, it's yours. Because we can buy the expertise we need to build the Bahamas. Your light bill goes down. Ground transportation is established. The resources in the country is protected. So the hundreds of millions of dollars, imagine $500 million a year or maybe more, in resources is stolen out of this country. What happens if we capture that $500 million a year and we keep it because we bought the proper border control, not patrolling randomly around the border. We're going to control our borders. Our 200-mile economic zone. We're going to exploit the seabeds that's worth in the trillions of dollars. How about it where we have, do you know the United States, the state of Florida, is listed as the fishing capital of the world? The state of Florida. Do you know Grand Bahama, East Grand Bahama, have more fishing flats than the entire United States? But Florida is the fishing capital of the world? Do you know East Grand Bahama, I'm not talking about the Bahamas, you know, has more mangroves than the United States? But Florida, that's where the fish is born and the crawfish and conch. But Florida is the fishing capital of the world. Billions of dollars in revenue. Tens of thousands of cruise boats that plows our water. How is it that in the blue economy, the United States collectively can't match the resources that we have, but they have billion-dollar industries? And we have a couple of fishermen and some jobs and stuff. How is it that the state of Florida, I think, employs 140,000 people in the fishing industry? And what is that, half of our workforce? Tens of thousands of yachts that rent and come into our waters to enjoy deep fishing. Do you know the economic zone for the U.S. cannot overlap into the Bahamas? So the 200 miles east of us, the deep waters are ours for 200 miles exclusive economic zones. You know, if there's 65, let's say there's 75, let's just go 100 miles. If there's 100 miles between the Bahamas and Florida, that means 50% is the delimitation mark. So that ends it. So after they come out 50 miles, that's their zone. They're now in Bahamian waters. And then 200 miles to the other side of the Bahamas is ours. That's where they fish and plow. That's where they make billions of dollars on their cruise ship. But you can't get financing for a boat where these guys getting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a day. You don't have to be a captain of a boat, you know. You just got to own it. You can buy a captain. You can buy a captain. Why is it there's not thousands of boat owners, yacht owners, of people enjoying the deep water, the fishing, the beaches, the islands, whatever else, cruising the Bahamas? Because your leadership don't want you to. There's a group called an oligarchs and the plutocrats, the newly minted through thievery or whatever it is, or being elected. Somehow being elected gives you a magical outlet to funding. Doesn't believe that you should have a right to owning a cruise ship. I mean, a yacht, a cruising yacht. You don't have to own anything. You don't have to do it yourself, you know. You can own a restaurant and send people to work. You can own a Burger King and McDonald's, Kentucky, all these different things, and send people to work. You could own a hotel and have people work it for you. You could own a yacht and have people work it for you. The money comes to you. Pay them the salary. But they don't want you to, because when you become empowered, you will outnumber them. Where we start with the Prime Minister of the Bahamas and Mr. Brave Davis endorsing it, Ms. Kamalafi endorsing it, Mr. Kevin King endorsing it, Mr. Wesley Campbell endorsing it, Mr. Cassius Stewart endorsing it, Ms. Ali McIntosh endorsing it, and whoever else will endorse the surrendering of all Crown land immediately into a sovereign wealth fund. And if you can't do it, I guarantee you, unequivocally, Mr. Gregory Moss, I have confidence, will be more than happy to draft the proper one and have us vet it to make sure it's what we want. And we can have this all done by the next sitting at the House of Assembly on September 9th or whatever it is they reach. And we could change the Bahamas with the sovereign wealth fund. So, but first of all, I want you to get out of your head that you're going to get $100,000 a year, whatever. That may come down the road, but we have to build the infrastructure first to give you a better life, an education system, a grand transportation system, an energy grid, investing and giving you capitalization so that you could build that bed and breakfast, that hotel, or whatever else. Because not only will you have access to the land, you will have the collateral signature. Now, I want you to check this out. I want you to imagine that you want to build this hotel. And because you are the owner of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Sovereign Wealth Fund will assign the land to you and fund the hotel. And should you mess it up, guess what happens? Guess who it goes back to? You. You finance it. You own the land and you finance it. And if you mess up, it comes back to you. Make sense? It's like you being the bank. You know this? It allows you to try until you get it right. And if you have what it takes to learn how to run a hotel, we'll buy an expert for you and help you prepare for ownership. Because we want you to be successful. Because who owns the land? It'll be preserved for all behemoths, for perpetually. But you get the benefit of managing that aspect of it in partnership. So you get to keep whatever, like you say, you build it and add value. And the Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Sovereign Asset Management will take a percentage of the value that you add to our land. We'll still own the land. But you're going to come and say, hey, Mr. Sovereign Wealth Fund, Mr. Sovereign, I want to use this piece of land that you own to build this resort on it, to build whatever on it. And this is the value that will be added to it. And this is the percentage of the value that I'm adding to it that you will get. It's not complicated. And that's all it takes. Because we, as a collective, will own all of the Bahamas. All of it. All of it. For perpetually. Not no 99 years, whatever. Forever. We will move to, say we want to keep 75% of the Bahamas, 85%, whatever figure we want in the Bahamas in total trust. When somebody comes to live in the Bahamas, guess who they're renting from? You. Because you own the Sovereign Wealth Fund. You own the land they're going to build on. Or you own the house they will lease from you from. If you build a high rise, they're renting from you. They're leasing from you. Because it's owned, housing will be owned by the collective. It happens in Singapore. The same Singapore, they own 75% of all the housing units in Singapore. You know, a Sovereign Wealth Fund owns 75% of all it. I don't remember whether it's 80 or 90% of the land, but it's owned by them. But you hear Singaporeans crying about quality of life. We say we want to emulate them. In fact, we don't have to copy anybody. We can actually build our own model of wealth empowerment. There's less of us and more wealth. So we can have better homes, a better environment than Qatar. We are in a better position than the Qatar and Saudi Arabia that we admire. Do you know our oil deposits is larger than theirs? And I'm going to come back with that oil agreement we have. That's pure garbage. That's not how a Sovereign Wealth Fund works. That's not how ownership of an oil field works. Do you know in the US, people pay hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars for a license to look for oil? Then when they find the oil, they have to come back to the table and negotiate an agreement. After they find it, the license they pay is to look for it, which gives them the first right of refusal. Then after the oil is found, then they negotiate. They don't give it to them. That oil agreement we have, pure garbage. Pure garbage. But we can fix that. But it requires you to wake up and become involved. So join me. Share the video. I'm going to put a link down to the bottom for us to sign demanding the Sovereign Wealth Fund and the Crown land be surrendered. That's the first step. We have dozens of resources. I can name them all for you. Dozens of resources that we individually going to have each one to deposit into a Sovereign Wealth Fund or into its individual Sovereign Wealth Fund. It only requires you to abandon the gangs, PLP, FNM, DNA, whatever other gang. It requires you to choose to be a Bahamian. Not Bahamians, to be a Bahamian as a collective, one, for the benefit of all of us. All of us will be equal. Don't fall for the lie that the Prime Minister has ultimate powers. He does not. The The Prime Minister have as much power as cabinet allows, as much as people. Do you know, if no one in the House of Assembly or the Senate accept the position of a cabinet minister, the Prime Minister has no cabinet? None. You have to go back for an election. It's a vote of no confidence. So don't go. Stop sending emasculated men and women to the House of Assembly who would then come and tell you that the Constitution gives the Prime Minister unlimited power. It does not. It does not. The power is in the people who gives authority to the House of Assembly, who expect men and women to have testicular fortitude and ovarian audacity to represent what they said they went to the House of Assembly to do. To govern for you, not govern over you. And so if you get 51% of the House of Assembly who stand up to the Prime Minister and say, you're not doing that today, not today, not on our watch. The Prime Minister should be afraid of the House of Assembly. Afraid that when he walk in there, 50 plus 1% will say, not on our watch. The Prime Minister cannot appoint no one to any position without consent of 50 plus 1%. The Prime Minister can sign no agreement in the Bahamas without consent of 50 plus 1% of Parliament. The Prime Minister can't appoint no one. He can appoint them, but they'll be just as emasculated as he is without 50 plus 1% of Parliament. Don't let us go into that. So guess what? Even without the Prime Minister consent, Mr. Brave Davis, you're a noted QC lawyer, bring the Sovereign Wealth Fund and the bill to transfer all of the assets of Crown land to a Sovereign Wealth Fund. You believe in Bahamians, don't you? You represent the political party that brought us into independence. You know, the people, the small man, the philosophy of the PLP. We need a new social contract. I'm going to come back and have a conversation with you, about you, or to you, whatever it is, concerning that new social contract that your party was custodian of, that we failed to fulfill. It's time for us to restore the vision and reclaim the dream. Let's say restore the vision, reclaim and fulfill the dream. A new social contract is time for us now as we move into the 50th year, and the PLP needs to go back to what our forefathers promised us. Not just political independence, but what I'm talking about today is economic independence. If you're that party, it's time for you to stop putting party over people. It's time to put people over party. So we're going to begin to hold you accountable, and we want to hear it from you. We want to see it in your action, not just your talk, not just your talking heads. You know, if Menace wants to run, let him run. He has the title. You want it. Show that you're willing to represent us. Show that you're willing to listen to us. Leadership is about leading the collective ideology, the collective vision of a people, not necessarily one person, into the future. Show that you have the ability to harness the ideas and the thoughts and the plans and the dreams of all Bahamians and lead us into the future. This applies to you too, Ms. Kamalafi. We're not going to accept that, oh, I'm a woman and I'm young. We got 60% of the population that meet the definition of a woman. We got 70% of the population that meet the definition of young. Those are not qualifications. Those are definitions. Bring your ideas. Engage us. Talk to us. We don't expect you to know everything. We expect you to understand that as a collective we may. But at least you need this vision to sell us on, to bring us together. So, Ms. Kamalafi, if you want it, come get it. We ain't giving you nothing. You want it? Come take it. Power concedes nothing. You want it? Come get it. Take it. But waiting to be government ain't it. Mr. Brave Davis, waiting to be government ain't it. We're looking for a government in waiting. The ones that can bring the ideas and the vision for our people. We're looking for a government in waiting. We're not looking for people waiting to be government. I'm declaring that era is over. COVID, finish it for you, for that whole era. We're in crisis now. We're in a housing crisis. We're in a job crisis. We're in a financial crisis. We're in an economic crisis. It's no waiting. It's time for building. It's time for ideas. It's time for vision. It's time for us to claim what's rightfully ours. It's time for a new social contract. We are in the fourth industrial, what is it? We are in the second industrial revolution, third technology revolution, fourth industrial revolution, fifth social revolution, and all of these new things to be using. And we're still talking about old ideas and stuff. Well, the new one, the new beginning. A sovereign wealth fund in the immediate and surrendering of all crown land to the sovereign wealth fund, where a competent SAM, sovereign asset management company, and I can tell you, we got behemoths around the world with the intellectual capital that is managing billions and maybe trillions, that they would run home to become part of a sovereign asset management company that has nothing to do with the influence of politics, where they get to make decisions and they are bonded and licensed and all these other good things from abuse and whatever else to build a better Bahamas. Let's create a new Bahamas. I thank you. And if you have any questions, please, AllenCjohnson.com, AllenCjohnson.com. All of my contacts are there. All of the platforms are there. Private message me, direct message me, WhatsApp me, do whatever it is required. Let's have a conversation. I will create the what do they call it? The thing where you sign the polling or whatever it is you sign at one of those platforms for us to demand that a sovereign wealth fund be established and crown land be developed for it, and it be separate and apart from political influence. I will reach out to Mr. Gregory Moss and remind him that we still have a lot of expectation from him. From him. I once associated with him, so I had confidence in his ability, and he and I have talked about this for a number of years, and to see if he'd be willing, with proper compensation, to write for a properly orchestrated sovereign wealth fund that begins with the surrender of all crown lands to it and the hiring of a sovereign asset management company to exploit the land, developing the resorts, developing the bed and breakfasts, exploiting it for its value. That piece of land that's worth $100,000, if properly exploited, could be worth millions. The millions of dollars of land that we have, properly exploited, could be worth billions. And so you don't have to be taxed to death. We could just, what you say, tea, taxed enough already. You don't need no more tea. We've been taxed enough already. And so what we do is, please, it's time for the renewing of the mind. Let's purge ourselves of this political tribalism, gangsterism, the politics, and let's wear the color of the flags. Let's unite for our grandchildren. A wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Let's leave an inheritance for our children's children, not just the burden of national debt. I've told you, I 100% believe, I didn't go into the economics of it, but 100% believe that surrendering the crown land and reacquiring land so we go by and getting rid of the land theft trust called Quieting Titling Act. When you begin to have a land registry, you'll begin to see the level of corruption within our country. But they are the minority of us. They are the minority of us. The majority of us are God-fearing, God-loving, honest people with integrity. We don't need laws to make us transparent. We don't need laws to give us integrity. We don't need laws to keep us from being corrupt. We don't need laws to give access to information. We don't need laws to force us to be accountable. It's our nature. And let's stop sending people to Parliament that requires laws to make them be transparent. Let's stop sending people to Parliament that requires laws for them to be accountable. Let's stop sending people to Parliament that requires laws for them to have integrity. Let's stop sending people to Parliament that requires laws to stop them from being corrupt. Let's stop selling people to Parliament that requires laws to allow them to be freedom of information. There has to be a number of us, and I think the majority of us are. But we have allowed our reality to be construed, twisted. Now we're getting a new focus. COVID is giving us a time to rethink and reboot. And I do believe that the start is with the Sovereign Wealth Fund properly constituted and the surrendering of the Crown land that's worth the billions of dollars that we could leverage for immediate development. And in another day, tomorrow, the day after, as I begin to talk about home ownership, which will tie into the resources that come from this Crown Land Trust, on how you could own a home free without costs. I mean, when I say without costs, like I explained to you, the land, the home you own will pay for itself if you're living in it, and if you're not living in it, it'll pay for itself and the location you're living in. It's that simple. It can't be done anywhere else. You know where it's done? Because it has one word to it: Bahamas. Understand your value. And I invite the economists and the real estate agents and all those other people to challenge me on this. It's Alan Johnson speaking from the future. Thank you. Share the video, share the video. If you came in late, I invite you to rewind it. It may be a little bit long, but I hope it's filled with information. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I love you, Bahamas. And Grand Bahama, I don't know if you're my first wife or my sweetheart, but I love the Bahamas. But you know, you got a special, Grand Bahama, you got a special place for me. You know why? Because you know what, you're the heart. You're the heart of the economics of the revitalization of this country. We just got to get rid of that pink bill and we have your Grand Bahama Port Authority. It serves no purpose. You know, we can have more conversation on that. We just need to take ownership of our country. I didn't say get rid of the Oxford Creek Agreement. I said get rid of the cancer called the Grand Bahama Port Authority. And Grand Bahama, I guarantee you, we're going to be the ones, what do you say? And Grand Bahama is where you're going to see the first smart community. Grand Bahama is where you're going to see the first smart city. Grand Bahama is where you're going to see the first smart island in the Bahamas. And eventually the rest of you will become part of the smart Bahamas. And so we're gonna redefine Grand Bahama, because this is going to be the place that we need to have. We're going to have Grand Bahama is going to be that, you know, I talked about this governance, where if a hurricane hit New Providence, this is where you're going to run to. We're going to build a resilient and resiliency into Grand Bahama, where digitally we could run the Bahamas with a laptop. One laptop, we could run the entire Bahamas. We're going to rebuild that whole new place in Grand Bahama. So don't let them tell you about global warming and everything. You have Denmark and the rest of them that's underwater. We have the technology. We have the resources, the aragonite or whatever, the billions of tons of aragonite to lift the Bahamas to any level we want and redefine the Bahamas that we want. Technology allow and the resources allow us to build a resilient and build resiliency into an island nation where the world will look forward to. Remember, like Miles Monroe say, this is where God lives. Or at minimum, he vacations. I can't think of him. Why would he build a place so beautiful? Unless he wanted to have some place to visit when he's in our realm. Thank you so much for joining me. Share the video, share the video, share the video. You are blessed people. We are a blessed nation. And I believe that unequivocally. There's no negotiations in regards to that. So Bahamas, I invite you to reimagine the Bahamas. Grand Bahamians, I ask you to reimagine Grand Bahama like never before. A new Bahamas isn't coming. A new Bahamas is here. We're gonna get over this COVID. We're gonna get over Dorian, because everything we need to rebuild is in us and around us. God has blessed us. Thank you for joining me. Share the video, share the video. Like me on the various different platforms, because I'm going to begin to talk. No one's going to shut me up. Only God could separate us. Thank you. Bahamas, I love you. Good afternoon.